Hello friends, I'm going to share and discuss about the potential risk associated with using Cuspal Sub Lord or the CSL in KP natal astrology. Please note that we are going to discuss about the CSL in KP natal or the birth horoscope astrology. In a few of my previous videos, I have already discussed and demonstrated with some examples the risk of using the CSL in the natal or the birth horoscope in the KP framework. But now this is the time for another on the same subject. See, recently what happened that someone known to me, a KP a beginner, so she shared some notes on a chart that relied heavily on the use of the Cuspal Sub Lord. So she made some readings and analysis using the CSL rules. Obviously the readings were incorrect and she herself was kind of nervous and not sure if the readings were proper or not. She had all other confusions as well. And she has picked up these CSL related rules and lessons from a YouTube video. So I'm going to share the screen grab from that video as well. But I explained her the risks that are involved in making use of the Cuspal Sub Lord in the KP natal. And in my discussion, I realized that she had no idea. She was totally clueless about the how the CSL is calculated, how rapidly they change, what are the issues when the CSL, when somebody is relying on the use of CSL in the birth horoscope. She just picked up something, from that kind of a video, and there are many these videos floating on the YouTube where some CSL related rules are given, and the students, they just commit these rules and they blindly start applying these rules, which obviously they are going to fall flat. I have not seen the CSL rule giving any proper result. So I told her, I explained her that there is no need to make use of the CSL, and told her not to waste any more time on the CSL in the KP natal horoscope. All this is going to be a part of my discussion in this video. You see a lot of these the problems where the students and the newcomers are being misled and fooled by the ignorant KP teachers who lack critical thinking skills. They do not explain properly. I think most of these teachers, they themselves have no clue. They have just blindly picked up something about the CSL, and that is what they teach in the class, and they are not open to any open to any discussion or a dialogue or even a critical kind of a thinking. So this is how the students and the beginners in KP, right from the initial days of learning, are forced to go on a very misleading path of making use of the Cuspal Sub Lord. So that's one of the main reasons these KP ignorant KP teachers and other instructional videos. While the CSL must always be used in horary astrology, this also I have explained many times, that the Cuspal Sub Lord has to be used in the horary astrology, in the KP horary, where you can see the magic of Krishnamurti Paddhati unfolding if you properly make use of the Cuspal Sub Lord. But when it comes to the natal chart or the horoscope, then the issues are very different. Usually, people talk about the Cuspal Sub Lord being sensitive to the time of birth. You see, that's one of the reason, but that reason is not alone. These days, people have smart devices, iPhone and other smart devices. So, recording a so-called precise birth time is not really a big deal. But the issue is not related to the precise recording of the birth time. The issue is related to what exactly is the birth time. This you have to understand that the birth time itself, is a process. This is not a single kind of a moment that you can, record. So this is very important for you to understand that birth time itself is a process. It is not a single moment making precise that you can capture. So, and this thing has also been discussed by Professor Krishnamurti himself. So I'm going to discuss the Professor Krishnamurti's preference for the horary astrology. Professor has spoken about the challenges in the natal astrology, and I'm going to share some text from his own article that Professor Krishnamurti himself has written. So I'm going to share that article with you as well. Now this note on why horary astrology is preferred. This is written by Professor Krishnamurti, and you can find it in this book, The Horary Astrology. This is a very interesting and thoughtful note from Professor Krishnamurti, and I think this must be made mandatory reading for every KP teacher. If you want to become a KP teacher, you must read this particular article that appears in the Horary Astrology book, where Professor Krishnamurti has discussed the challenges related to the birth time. Very thoughtful, very profound and very deep observations he has made. And finally, he points out that hence the time of birth is in most of the cases not correct at all. Apart from that, I also you have to keep this also in mind that birth time itself is a process. It is not a single moment. We don't know whether the head of the child or whether the umbilical cord or whether the child takes the first breath, what should be considered as the precise time of birth, because it is a process. So that is why it creates these additional challenges. Professor Krishnamurti, apart from this, has explained that what other issues are there in recording the correct birth time. And obviously, when you don't have correct birth time, how you can get the correct, say, Cuspal Sub Lord? In the same article, and let me read out because it might not be very readable on the video screen. What Professor Krishnamurti is saying is, this shows that the moment of the birth of a child should be very correct, when only the prediction will come out accurately. If the time of birth differs by a few minutes, see, he has mentioned a few minutes, but I am going to show you an example where a time of birth by a few seconds, if there is a few seconds of difference, then the Cuspal Sub Lord changes. So what Professor is saying is that this horoscope becomes like somebody else's horoscope if the Cuspal Sub Lord changes, and so the reading fails. The Professor Krishnamurti also mentions about the challenges of creating some kind of a rule based on the Cuspal Sub Lord. Because one has to collect, see, suppose if you want to create a rule based on the Cuspal Sub Lord for related to marriage, whatever, okay, then you have to collect maybe 50, 100, horoscopes, and then immediately you start facing this challenge of whether the Cuspal Sub Lord is accurate or not. This is a very daunting task, and at one phase of my life when I had a study circle, we did invest a lot of time in doing this, and then finally we got so frustrated with the fact that we were not even sure about the correct birth time. Not only because the correct birth time was not recorded, but because, like I mentioned, the birth time itself is a process. So this is a very nice article. You should buy this book and you should read it multiple times and think about it. The critical thinking is very important in becoming a good KP astrologer. Now, if you have a hold of this book, the notable persons and Krishnamurti Paddhati, this is written by Professor Hariharan. I think he is Professor Krishnamurti's eldest son and a very good astrologer. So, but if you read these books, and there are not many horoscopes of notable persons that have been discussed, you will hardly find Professor Hariharan making use of the Cuspal Sub Lord of the Ascendant to describe the character sketch or nature of the person. Typically, when you join an online class, they will explain you to identify the Cuspal Sub Lord of the Ascendant, and then based on that describe the nature of the person. In most of the books by even the Krishnamurti camp, I think K.S. Subramaniam and even Professor Hariharan, they might discuss these rules about the Cuspal Sub Lord. But this book itself, where Professor Hariharan has to describe in detail the character sketch of the famous person, he has hardly made use of the Cuspal Sub Lord. He has made use of the all Parashari rules and yoga to describe the nature of a person. So why I am discussing this is that sometime I see some of the senior astrologers, they themselves are kind of careless about the CSL risk, and they say, a lot of these KP books they mention about this the Cuspal Sub Lord thing. That's true that a lot of these books do mention, but when it comes to the practical thing, you see, you have to do the practical. You don't have to get stuck up in the theory. So when you start doing the practical, then you realize that those all theoretical rules, they don't work for you. Okay. When you have to do the practical, then you have to make use of then you have to ignore the Cuspal Sub Lord. And I'll show you one example that how you can make a very good analysis without relying on the Cuspal Sub Lord. So here is the screen grab from one of the KP learning session in progress. I guess she is the teacher. See, I don't have any grudge against her, but I'll just show you that how an ignorant teacher is going to mislead all the students into teaching some rules that are not going to help them when they are doing a practical analysis. So what she has done is that she has pulled she has created this chart of this gentleman, Sardarji. This is Ranveer Singh. Okay. And these are his birth particulars. Now the rule that she is explaining to Mr. Singh is, and she is discussing about the character sketch of Mr. Singh, And the rule that she is explaining, and which you will find in many other similar kind of videos and even some of the books, that the Cuspal Sub Lord of the ascendant. So Cuspal Sub Lord of the ascendant is moon. So she picks up moon, and then she starts focusing on the position of moon, which is here in the ascendant, in the Bhav chart or the Cusp chart, and then based on the moon she starts depicting the character of the Sardarji, that he is emotional and things like that. And those are very general kind of stuff. You can see, you can say emotional to anyone. I mean, if I tell any of you that you are emotional, nobody is going to deny that they are not, emotional. So these are very chalu kind of reading. And additionally, at one point, I think she was explaining something, and the Sardarji was kind of not too convinced. And but see, what happens is, in these kind of a classroom, with where you have a formal setup, the students are polite and they don't want to engage in some kind of open dialogue. That's what I have also seen. And at the same time, the teacher themselves are not encouraging any open dialogue or any critical thinking. They, just like a tota parrot, they might have read somewhere some rules, and that's what they just keep on discussing and applying. And not only this, they tend to justify, even if sometime the student they protest, then the teacher tries to justify the rules. And I'm sure this teacher, her name is Rajini, she has not read the article that Professor Krishnamurti has mentioned in that book. So first is that she should read that article, and secondly is that not only she, but anybody who is teaching Krishnamurti Paddhati should allow open dialogue and should encourage a student to have a critical thinking. That's what Krishnamurti Paddhati is all about, and that is what Professor Krishnamurti is famous for. He always loved and encouraged critical thinking, and that is what need to be done. Now, when I was looking at this screen grab, there are so many things that can go wrong. Another example I can give you is the true Rahu and the true Ketu. Now, this calculation will give you this changes the sublord position. So what I am trying to say is, I am not saying that the mean Rahu is better than the true Rahu, or true Rahu is better than the mean Rahu. That's beside the point. What I am trying to say is that this teacher should draw this particular fact to the attention of the student, that if you make use of the true Rahu or the mean Rahu, then the sublord position might change. And similarly, if she is discussing about the Cuspal Sublord, then at the same time she should also let the students know that what kind of a risk is involved with the Cuspal Sublord. But I don't see that kind of a thing happening in these classes, and the result is the same that happened with one of this friend that I was talking about. She invested a lot of time in learning these CSL rules, and when she showed me her notes, they were all out of place. Nothing was impressive, and I could see that, and the most sad part is that she had no clue about the how fast the Cuspal Sub Lord changes, what are the implications. Nothing is taught in these kind of classes. So, and most of these students who are learning, they just blindly learn these kind of a thing, and they think now they have become KP astrologer, and they start applying the Cuspal Sub Lord thing. I have seen the articles from very renowned astrologers whom I respect a lot. I am not going to mention their name, where they made use of the Cuspal Sub Lord by using very extensive method of rectification of birth time. These are very experienced KP astrologers, and then they engaged in some kind of a political forecast, and it all failed. And not only that failed, in some of the politicians where they had they were making use of the Cuspal Sub Lord to describe the character sketch. It was not falling in tune. So forget about the Cuspal Sub Lord. You are on my channel, so from my experience, I will tell you: don't waste your time in Cuspal Sub Lord. You know the rule, that this is the KP rule about the Cuspal Sub Lord, and but that's it. When it comes to describing the character sketch, I have already shown in my previous video, and once again I will tell you what exactly need to be done. All you have to do is that if you want to describe the character sketch of this horoscope, whatever horoscope is, don't look at the Cuspal Sub Lord at all. Don't look at the Bhav chart. Even this is not needed. Aquarius ascendant, that's the point number one that you should make. This ascend, and then the moon. Where is the moon? In the second house. And the moon star. Where is the moon star? The moon is in the star of Saturn. That's it. So you have to combine these three things: the Aquarius ascendant, and moon in the star of the Saturn, and moon in the second house. When you combine these factors, then you can create a very nice character sketch about a person, and that person will be very happy. I have done so much of readings based on this process, and this gives very good result, very encouraging result. People are very happy, and they like it. And so see, what happens is that you as a person, or any person, is a very complex entity. Just by taking Cuspal Sub Lord, moon, you can't possibly describe all shades of a person. So make use of the ascendant lord, the ascendant, which is Aquarius over here, and the moon, which is in the second house, and then the moon's star, which is Saturn. The Saturn position has to be taken. In Krishnamurti Paddhati, the moon would be in the Saturn star at least 3 times a month. So that alone is not sufficient. You have to look at moon's position in the Saturn, which usually makes person very contemplative or slow in action. It also sometimes gives depression also. Moon in Saturn that way is not a good thing to have. But if Saturn also indicates 8th house, then this whole depression thing with the Saturn becomes more vocal. So this is how you have to create a good, nice, impressive and interesting character sketch, rather than just picking up this moon and just doing some chalu stuff. Don't waste your time on that. And now I will show you that by taking these particulars and by changing the time by a minute or so, how this Cuspal Sub Lord changes. I'll show you, and for that we will go to the Jyotish portal. We have navigated to the Jyotish portal, and when you click on this option, the free KP birth or horary chart, then you will be able to generate a chart. So I have already populated this form. So this was the data for the Sardarji that we saw in the previous screen. So I have already populated the birth time. Let's match 86 August 22 and 1855, and the city is Bundi in Rajasthan. Let's generate this chart. So we got the ascendant Sub Lord as moon, the same we saw in that the previous screen. Now let's see, if we increase the time, let's say by maybe a minute or 2 minutes, then what happens? So I'm going to make it, remember we saw Mars and moon as the star lord and the sub lord of the ascendant. Everything is same, just the time I've changed by a couple of minutes. And now you see what happened. You see, now the Cuspal Sub Lord, not only the Sub Lord has become Rahu, the Star Lord has also become Rahu. So that means that the Cusp was right at the border of the Mars and the Rahu sublord, the Mars star and the Rahu sublord in the Aquarius, and just a minute, few second changes, and you see the star lord and sublord both has changed. Now based on that, the character sketch and everything of Mr. Singh will change. So this is how the Cuspal Sub Lord is not at all reliable in the birth horoscope. It will give you all incorrect pointers, and this is not only about just the character sketch, any kind of a thing, marriage or foreign trip and all these. See, those rules are all good for horary, but I have not seen them working well in the natal chart. And since you don't want to get stuck up with wrong theories, you want to evolve and become a practicing astrologer by actually offering some good readings. So moving forward, this is what you should do. I would strongly advise, don't waste your time on the Cuspal Sub Lord in the KP natal. And the one example I showed you, and in many of my videos I have given examples where I have not made use of the Cuspal Sub Lord for assessing career or marriage or divorce, and you can find them on my channel. Many of you who have started ignoring the Cuspal Sub Lord, they have written to me in the email, thank you for letting me know, and I think that's the right thing to do. And if you know any other student or a beginner in KP astrology, then you might want to at least bring this fact to their knowledge. See, I'm not saying that we have to force anyone to stick to what I'm saying. That's not the point. The point is that as a student you should know that what are the risks or the potential dangers involved in using the Cuspal Sub Lord versus not using. One of the question is that if we don't have the Cuspal Sub Lord, how do we make an assessment? There are plenty of tools, and in my channel I have given many videos, and whenever I am able to find something new, I am always sharing with you guys. Even Professor Krishnamurti has written a lot of articles where he has not made use of the Cuspal Sub Lord. Okay, so there is plenty of resources available where without depending on the Cuspal Sub Lord, you can still move forward and make a good prediction. That way you have a peace of mind, and at least you don't fall a victim to these ignorant teachers. Okay, they are not going to teach you, they are not going to put you on the right track. Learning Krishnamurti Paddhati means you should have an open dialogue in the class. You should have a critical thinking, a discussion. That's what Krishnamurti Paddhati is, and that's what makes Krishnamurti Paddhati different from the Parashari astrology also, and that is what Professor Krishnamurti also encouraged. So keeping that in mind, you might want to look at the whatever I discussed in this video. Now before I end this session, many of you who might be visiting the Jyotish portal, you will see that we have a new interface over here. So a lot of new things have been done, and hopefully in a week or so we are going to add the horoscope saving and retrieving the horoscope from the horoscope bank. And so I'm going to create a separate video on the new interface, because there's a lot of things to unpack over here. There are a lot of new things that have been introduced in this new user interface, and it has been made very user friendly for the people who are practicing KP astrologers. So that's all in this video. Thanks for watching.